1933, and I'm a private eye. I like to drink egg creams, and I like to fight Nazis. A lot. Sometimes I let matches burn down to my fingertips just to feel something, anything.
Hello, my name is Alex Navarro, and I have a confession to make. I have seen every Nicolas Cage movie. Throughout his 40-year career, a version of Cage has emerged that has kind of become the de facto shorthand for what we expect a Nicolas Cage performance to be.
And I think I deserve a little appreciation.
You've seen it in clips, in stills, in memes. It's the bug-eyed Cage, where his face is perpetually contorted into some kind of uncanny position. Now, it's far from the only version of himself that Cage has presented over his 100-plus films, but it's the one that stood out. But he's also given many soulful performances that required none of that expressionistic mugging. Performances that are as grounded and mesmerizing as any other great actors. His range is something that never quite gets the credit it deserves, either because of the way we tend to reduce him to his most meme traits, or because of his long stretch in the VOD desert. Still, there's no other actor I've developed this sort of fixation upon. This need to consume everything that they attach their name to. And even through his darkest straight-to-video periods, the number of movies where Cage feels like he's truly phoning it in are few and far between. But going through the entirety of his catalog is a truly daunting task. And that's why I'm here. I've done the work for you, and I'm about to give you what I think are the most memorable performances that any Cage-curious person should experience. And now, without further ado, let us enter the cage.
Horrible trap.
Sorry, I couldn't resist.
Something about Nicolas Cage as a by-the-books object of romance has never fully worked. And his most successful romantic roles tend to be when he's portraying someone a little more on the fringes. Nowhere is this more apparent than in Moonstruck, a stone-cold classic romantic comedy in which he plays a weirdo of the utmost pedigree. Cage is Brooklyn baker Ronnie Camerari, the estranged brother of Danny Aiello's Johnny, who is engaged to be married to Cher's Loretta. When Ronnie and Loretta meet, he promptly lays out the nature of their estrangement before threatening to kill himself right there in the bakery.
Bring me the big knife, I'm gonna cut my throat!
Not exactly a meet cute, but it doesn't take long for him and Loretta to begin a whirlwind affair. And it's a credit to both Cage and Cher that they make such an off-the-wall romance not only believable, but one of the all-time greats. Ronnie is a singularly peculiar object of romantic interest, an opera-loving depressive who looks like he hasn't bathed in months, yet is still utterly convincing as a man Loretta would leave Johnny for. Honestly, the whole movie is a treasure that's really only gotten better with age. But Cage in particular sells this nutty character with everything he's got. In David Lynch's terrifyingly romantic Wild at Heart, Cage plays Sailor Ripley, a man singularly devoted to Laura Dern's Lula. Lula is equally smitten.
Wow.
But Lula's mother, Marietta, played by a screeching mad Diane Ladd, wants the delinquent sailor gone from her daughter's life and repeatedly meddles in their raging romance. So they flee their small southern town and drive out west, while Marietta's agents and other dark forces follow behind them. As Sailor, Cage is an ideal Lynch protagonist. He's handsome in kind of a 50s greaser sort of way, prone to outbursts of violence and affection in equal measure, and deeply obsessed with his snakeskin jacket, which he counts as a symbol of his individuality and belief in personal freedom.
Did I ever tell you that this here jacket represents a symbol of my individuality and my belief in personal freedom?
Cage's chemistry with Dern is unlike anything he's had in his career. They apparently spent some time in Vegas together to get on the same page about their on-screen relationship, deciding that the two should act as almost like a single character. It works brilliantly, and Cage and Dern feel utterly inextricable for one another, and love in a way that is both reckless and desperate. There are a ton of great Cage moments in this movie, but the part where Cage stops a thrash metal concert dead in its tracks so he can sing Love Me to Dern counts among both Cage and Lynch's all-time great scenes.
Seem like a genius.
If it weren't for the directorial panache John Woo is best known for, combined with the incredible ham-bone acting of both Nicolas Cage and John Travolta, Face Off's face-swapping nonsense would never have a chance of working. As mega-terrorist Castor Troy and dogged government agent Sean Archer, Cage and Travolta are tasked to not only play one another's character, but also frequently play impressions of their original character as interpreted by the one they've switched to. It's layers upon layers of weirdo acting, and while Travolta has maybe just a little less heavy lifting to do on that front, he avails himself admirably. That said, Cage's version of Travolta's Archer is honestly the more captivating of the two. Though I'd be a liar if I didn't say his true highlights were all the early movie mugging and headbanging between gunfights as Castor. Combine all that with some all-time great action scenes from one of the best directors to ever blow shit up. And a great deal of unnecessary slow-motion camera work, and you've got a recipe for a straight-up action classic. Much of the last decade of Cage's output has been spent in a sort of VOD purgatory, churning out low-grade revenge movies. On paper, Pig sounded a bit like those, but with a goofy twist. What if instead of avenging the woman he loves, or the family that's been lost, Cage sought revenge for his beloved truffle pig? However, Pig is something else entirely. As reclusive chef Robin Feld, Cage cuts as quietly devastating a figure as he's ever created as he runs roughshod over the city of Portland looking for his pig. But instead of shotgunning his way through the city's underworld, he instead mournfully drifts around the people and places he once knew and willfully abandoned for a cabin deep in the woods. Michael Sarnowski's film is a small wonder. Gentle and subversive in places where you'd expect it to go big and violent, and it continuously finds ways to surprise as it builds to its incredible conclusion. And at the center of it all, Cage is amazing, wearing every grievous injury he suffered, both physical and emotional, with grace and humanity all throughout. He turns what could have been a merely strange confection of a movie into a nourishing feast.
I'm gonna finish this.
Cage deservedly won his only Academy Award to date for his performance in Leaving Las Vegas as Ben, a man determined to drink himself to death. It's one of the most impactful performances he's ever given, and also one of his hardest to watch. There are definitely some aspects of Leaving Las Vegas that haven't aged gracefully. Its cloying jazz soundtrack and oversimplified writing of Elizabeth Shue's character feel very much of their time. But Shue is entirely worthy of the award nomination she received for her portrayal of Sarah, the woman who takes Ben in as he enters the final stages of his descent. And Cage is sincerely harrowing as Ben. You can easily imagine a version of this performance that's nothing but showboating tics and wailing sadness, but Cage only rarely touches that territory. The moments he and Shue share together are as touching as they are heartbreaking.
It looks like I'm with the right girl.
This is a performance that shows a man rotting from the inside, decaying spiritually before his body catches up. Ben and Sarah are two broken people trying to enjoy some time together before one of them inevitably shatters. Whether you believe that shattering is truly inevitable will have a lot to do with where you land on Leaving Las Vegas. No matter where you land, though, Cage is astonishing in this movie. It's a shame that Cage has so rarely gotten to exercise his slapstick comedy chops past Raising Arizona, because he's a truly underrated comedic actor, even outside of his usual peculiar choices. And it's impossible not to feel pangs of sadness knowing that he never worked with the Coen brothers again. Because I can't think of an actor-director's combo that feels more natural. He's precisely the kind of actor that should, and at least in this film does, thrive on the kind of energy the Coens bring to their projects. But hey, at least we got Raising Arizona. For my money, one of the funniest films ever made. As semi-reformed crook and would-be father H.I. McDonough, Cage is hilarious from the opening sequence as he woos and eventually marries Holly Hunter's correctional officer, Ed. He and Hunter are at the top of their respective games here.
You son of a bitch!
Better hurry it up. I'm in Dutch with the wife.
And standouts among a cast that doesn't really have a single unmemorable performance. This is one of those movies I end up loving more and more every time I watch it, and I am dying for another director to utilize Cage's zany gifts again, as well as the Coens do here.
Kill. Cool. I really liked Dress to Kill. Until the third act denouement.
Not only do you get two Nicolas Cages for the price of one in Adaptation, but it's also a flat-out incredible movie, featuring some of the best work not only of Cage's career, but heavy hitters like Meryl Streep and Chris Cooper as well. Cage plays both an imagined version of screenwriter Charlie Kaufman and his twin brother Donald, who does not actually exist in real life.
Don't worry for my script.
If you've ever seen one of Kaufman's movies, you can easily imagine how he might portray himself. Nervous, sweaty, utterly devoid of confidence. Donald, on the other hand, is all misplaced confidence and reckless abandon. He wants to be a screenwriter just like his brother, and has no qualms about creating the kind of generic Hollywood garbage Charlie refuses to touch.
Okay, but here's the twist. We find out that the killer really suffers from multiple personality disorder, right? See, he's actually really the cop and the girl. All of them are him. Isn't that f***ed up?
Charlie, however, can't get his latest screenplay going, an adaptation of journalist Susan Orlean's nonfiction book The Orchid Thief that he simply can't find a way to turn into a movie. Where Adaptation goes from there is as sensationally strange as any movie on this list. The choice to turn what may genuinely have been an unadaptable book into a meta-narrative about the person trying to adapt it is truly one of the wildest swings any screenwriter has ever made. And Cage is remarkable in the dual role, giving Charlie all the fretting pathos he can handle, while making Donald feel just different enough to feel like his own character.
One you love and hold her tight, so happy together.
What the hell do you need binoculars for?
If you've avoided seeing Bad Lieutenant Port of Call New Orleans because it sounds like a dumb retread of Abel Ferrara's original Bad Lieutenant, disabuse yourself of that notion now. This film has absolutely nothing to do with that movie, outside of also featuring a lieutenant who is, frankly, bad. Cage's lieutenant is a New Orleans cop who suffers from debilitating back pain after jumping into Hurricane Katrina floodwaters to rescue a prisoner trapped in a jail cell. He develops a severe drug addiction, and slowly comes unglued as his corrupt tendencies collide with his sincere desire to bring to justice a murdering drug lord played by Exhibit. This movie isn't all Cage rage and extremity. There are plenty of quietly reflective moments peppered throughout, and director Werner Herzog is more than happy to inject a bit of his own unique flavor into the mix, periodically cutting to handheld camera shots of alligators and iguanas for seemingly no other reason than he thought it would be neat. But when Cage goes for the gusto, he delivers some of his all-time best scenes.
He landed again, he ran. He scored a touchdown!
In particular, the scene at Exhibit's house where he goes on about his lucky crack pipe, and then instructs his thugs to shoot a dead guy again because his soul is still dancing, is one I go back and watch frequently separate from the rest of the movie.
Shoot him again!
It's deliriously good stuff. As Peter Lowe, a loathsome literary agent who becomes convinced he's slowly turning into a vampire, Cage has never been more electrifyingly strange.
There you are!
Moreover, it is utterly impossible to imagine a version of Vampire's Kiss that does not feature Cage's singular performance. He doesn't so much star in the film as club it over the head and sling it over his shoulder, single-handedly carrying it to where it needs to be. Any description I could give you of what Cage does in this movie feels inadequate. You've probably seen clips shared around the internet of his face slowly morphing from simple irritation into pure mania. His infuriated recitation of the alphabet to his beleaguered therapist.
J-K-L-M-N-O-P Q-R-S-T-U-V-W-X-Y-Z!
Him blurting out a pained boo-hoo like a depressed cartoon. Him running down the street screaming, "I'm a vampire! I'm a vampire!"
I'm a vampire! I'm a vampire!
All these individual moments are unbelievable, but taken as a whole, they amount to a truly overwhelming performance. He takes a character that, on paper, isn't really much more than a B-grade Patrick Bateman, and turns it into something otherworldly. This is the movie that convinced me that Cage had so much more to offer than what is generally asked of him as a blockbuster leading man. Is it his best capital A acting? Probably not. But Cage has been on record calling it his favorite movie he's ever made. And who am I to disagree with that assessment?
Why'd you become a vampire? Why can't you be normal?
Martin Scorsese's Bringing Out the Dead is the one movie I wish came up more when talking about Cage's greatest performances. Because I think there's a strong argument that it's his greatest, period. As EMT Frank Pierce, Cage is utterly engrossing as a man hanging on by the barest of threads. He's haunted by his months-long streak of not saving anyone, he's barely sleeping at all, and he desperately, desperately wants to be fired.
You swore that you'd fire me if I came in late again. You swore.
I'll fire you tomorrow.
Unfortunately, there are too many medical emergencies happening night in and night out in early 90s New York, and his boss can't part with him. Amid the frantic nights and ever-changing partners, he befriends the daughter of an elderly man who keeps going into cardiac arrest before being brought back time and time again. Scorsese finds a way to use just about every part of what we know Nicolas Cage can bring to the table. He brings out truly convincing anguish in the film's most tragic moments and expertly deploys his scenery-chewing mania in just the right places.
Smash over the green monster! Yeah!
No matter how frantic and flashy the film itself gets, Cage keeps everything grounded. He transfixes you as he takes you on a harrowing tour of the pains that plague the city, of those who try to alleviate it, and of himself. People should talk about Bringing Out the Dead as one of Scorsese's best, and again, I think it might be Cage's greatest all-around effort. Seek this one out if you've never seen it. It's a marvel. What are your favorite Nicolas Cage performances? Let us know in the comments, and be sure to also check out our review of The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent.
Get
hit the brakes. What? Hit the brakes. He will hit the back of the truck. That won't work. Yes, it will. Yes, it will. Just do it. Do it. Do it. Do it.